Hello everyone. This week has been a really special one for us as our members' holiday at Warner's turned out to be a fantastic experience. I had the chance to spend some time with many of you during your stay and it was genuinely a highlight. From a bit of bowls and darts to even some salsa, it was great to see everyone enjoying themselves and making the most of their time together. What stood out the most for me was the conversation. Hearing your ideas, your experiences, and having some really meaningful discussions about how we can continue to support you in the best way possible. I'm so pleased to hear that you all had a great time. These moments really matter, and it's exactly what Sight for White is all about. Connection, confidence, and community. A massive thank you as well to Karen, Susan, Pete, and Emma for giving their time and energy to make the trip so special. It really does make a massive difference. And as we head into the next few weeks, I will be busy moving into our reporting season again. So I'll be a little less visible day to day, but please know that everything is still continuing behind the scenes. And as always, I look forward to catching up with you as and where we can. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care.
Here is this week's charity news, 17th of April 2026. Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15pm and 2pm. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
Tandem biking is now on a Tuesday along the Cowes cycle track. If you would like to go on a tandem, please do not hesitate to call the office and we can arrange a suitable time.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday starting at 10am until 11:30am. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
Eye on Social is on Wednesday the 22nd this month. We will be meeting at the Crown Inn, Shorewall, for lunch. If you would like to join us, please call the office by Monday the 20th so we can confirm numbers with the pub.
Mix and Mingle is on Thursday at Millbrook House. This group enjoys crafts, quizzes and entertainment. If you'd like to put your name down on the list, please call the office.
Our Strider group meets next Friday the 24th of April for a 5-mile circular walk around Gatcombe. Please call the office for more details to put your name on the list.
Advance notice that our Sight for White catch-up and feedback is on Wednesday the 29th at 11am. This is an opportunity to let us know your views on our services and any activities or things you would like us to do for you. Please come along, but if you are unable to do so, please feel free to call the office and let us know your views so we can discuss this at the meeting.
On Saturday the 4th of May, we will once again be holding our village market at Chillerton Village Hall, starting at 10am. We will be serving homemade cake, coffee and holding a raffle. Please come along and support the charity.
Our fundraising meeting was held on Monday. We have exciting plans for July the 4th, Christmas in July, with more details to follow. But please save the date. It will be a fantastic day.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. Isle of Wight Council to face firmer hand over pothole plague. Councils across the nation are set to face new rules for spending pothole funding or risk losing their cash. The government has set out new requirements to ensure taxpayers see real improvements in road quality, with councils facing tougher rules to prove they are fixing potholes or risk losing up to a third of next year's funding. Councils will face new rules on how they spend funding to fix potholes and maintain local roads, as the government sets out new requirements to ensure taxpayers see real improvements. Under the new measures, local highway authorities which fail to demonstrate they are maintaining roads effectively could lose around a third of their £1.6 billion funding for the next year. As previously reported by Ireland Echo in 2025, the Isle of Wight Council received a £1.6 million government investment to tackle the island's pothole issue. However, with the issue still at large, many have been fairly wondering where the money is going and what rules are in place to ensure that the funds are being correctly spent. Pothole damage already costs the average driver around £500 in avoidable repairs at a time when every pound in people's pockets matters. And the government is determined to ease that financial burden by ensuring councils fix roads properly. Roads and Buses Minister Simon Lightwood has said, "Drivers deserve smooth, safe journeys, and we're making sure every pound goes straight into fixing roads and tackling potholes, not being spent elsewhere." Potholes aren't just an inconvenience, they cost drivers hundreds, if not more, every time they cause damage to a vehicle. Fixing our roads is one of the most impactful things we can do to reduce the cost of owning and driving a car, and we're making sure every pound goes straight into doing exactly that. We've made it crystal clear that councils which fail to maintain their roads will now risk losing up to a third of their funding, and for the first time we're giving councils multi-year funding so they can plan properly and reverse a decade of decline in our roads. The changes will ensure that record investment in local roads is used as intended, with a total of £525 million held back from councils across England unless they are transparent and prove they are performing. Councils must publish reports proving they are spending all of their highways cash purely on road maintenance, showing long-term plans for looking after roads and better training for their highways teams. These new measures mean taxpayers know exactly where their money is going and will start to see smoother roads and an end to the pothole plague.
This is Patrina reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Isle of Wight College set for £750,000 upgrade funding. The Isle of Wight College is set to benefit from nearly £750,000 of government funding aimed at improving buildings and facilities. A total of £749,298 has been allocated to the college as part of a wider £307 million investment to repair and maintain further education sites across England. The funding will be used alongside work on the college's new building to upgrade existing facilities, including addressing maintenance issues such as ageing, infrastructure and worn-out spaces. The Isle of Wight College is one of 175 institutions set to receive a share of the funding, with leaders given flexibility to decide how best to spend the money locally. The Isle of Wight West MP, Richard Quickly, said he was pleased to help secure the investment, describing the college as central to further education on the island. He added that the funding would help create more opportunities for young people, supporting pathways to apprenticeships and higher education. Skills Minister Jackie Smith said the investment would help modernise college facilities and ensure students and staff have suitable environments for learning. The funding forms part of a wider £1.7 billion programme to upgrade college buildings by 2030. It is expected to be distributed to the Isle of Wight College in due course.
Healthwatch report highlights concerns over GP access, dentistry and mental health support. From the Island Echo. Concerns about the increasing use of online GP services, access to crisis mental health support, and NHS dentistry have been highlighted in an Isle of Wight watchdog report. Between the 30th of February and the 12th of March, Healthwatch gathered feedback on island health and social care services, which was 59% negative, 107 responses, 38% positive, 68 and 3% mixed or neutral. The two most common themes in its findings were GP dentistry services. NHS Hampshire and Isle of Wight, in response, pointed to improved access to routine and urgent NHS dental care and cited the delivery of over 1 million GP appointments across the region in January and February. A Hampshire and Isle of Wight Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust spokesperson, meanwhile, said islanders requiring urgent mental health support can now access help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, by calling the NHS 111 number free of charge. One Isle of Wight resident told Healthwatch of difficulty getting face-to-face appointments at a GP surgery and said doing it all online does not work well with queries, just requiring a quick answer. Another said the dentist accused me of delaying treatment when I'd been waiting for months and months for my appointments, which had been cancelled by the surgery, not me. A third spoke of calling 111 mental health crisis support and waiting 20 minutes and then hanging up. After listening to their auto message that they're busy helping other people, I decided mine wasn't as important, they said. A crisis service that leaves you on hold for 20 minutes, it took a long time to get up the courage to call them anyway. James Roach, Director of Primary Care and Local Care for NHS Hampshire and Isle of Wight, said people on the island now have improved access to routine and urgent NHS dental care as we work with two different providers offering an additional 42,000 appointments between them and with more access due to be commissioned. We also have made additional investment into oral health promotion for children because we know early prevention is key to better health outcomes. We know demand for services continues to be high. In both January and February, more than 1 million GP practice appointments were delivered across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. The trend of increasing appointment numbers has also been seen on the Isle of Wight, along with more people accessing services virtually. And between October 25 and January 26, around 40,000 people also accessed the Pharmacy First service to get advice and treatment for 7 common conditions. He said the ICB Integrated Health Board know appointment data alone only paints one half of the picture, and how a person felt their appointment went can tell a different story. While broadly speaking, patient satisfaction is improving, the ICB understands there is still more to be done, Mr. Roach added. A spokesperson for Hampshire and Isle of Wight Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust said, "This week we've continued our good working relationship with Healthwatch Isle of Wight by way of a productive conversation about our services. We welcome the feedback gathered by Healthwatch as it ensures that patients, families, carers and the public are heard openly and regularly. We note the report's particular point around people's concerns about access to crisis mental health support. We're pleased to have recently communicated a way in which these concerns are being meaningfully responded to. People on the Isle of Wight who need urgent mental health support can now access help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by calling 111 free of charge and selecting the mental health option, which is option 2.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. New DAB radio service launches across the Isle of Wight. A new digital radio service is being rolled out across the Isle of Wight, bringing more choice to listeners and marking a significant step forward for local broadcasting. Wight Digital Radio has confirmed its small-scale DAB multiplex will begin launching from the 18th of April, with stations joining in phases over the following weeks. At launch, the service is expected to reach around 80% of the island's population, with plans to expand coverage further in the future as more funding becomes available. The multiplex has been set up as a community interest company through partnership between Isle of Wight Radio and Vectis Radio, with both organisations aiming to strengthen the future of local radio on the island. Listeners will initially be able to tune in to 8 stations, offering a mixture of music, specialist programming and community content. These include Isle of Wight Radio and its retro service alongside Vectis Radio, Angel, Isle of Wight, Outreach Radio, Swinging Sixes, Our Island Radio, and Heritage Chart Radio. Kevin Curie of Vectis Radio commented, "It's great that we will be able to secure the digital future of some existing local stations and increase listener choice with some new stations." Claire John, Managing Director of Isle of Wight Radio, added, "We are delighted to have been a major funder for the multiplex, which will benefit both our station and others. We hope to raise further funding to cover the whole of the island in due course." Wight Digital Radio is a community interest company, CIC, established through a partnership between Isle of Wight Radio, the island's #1 commercial radio station, and Vectis Radio, the award-winning community broadcaster. Stations joining the multiplex include Isle of Wight Radio, Isle of Wight Radio Retro, Vectis Radio, Angel Isle of Wight, Outreach Radio, Swinging Sixties, Our Island Radio, Heritage Chart Radio. This diverse lineup ensures a broad range of programming catering to audiences across the island with music, community content and specialist shows. Wight Digital Radio is also inviting additional stations to join the multiplex. There are opportunities available for new services, and interested parties can find further details on rates and how to apply by visiting www.whitedigitalradio.co.uk. The launch of the multiplex represents a major milestone for broadcasting on the Isle of Wight, enabling both established and new stations to reach audiences via digital radio and ensuring long-term sustainability for local services.
This is Petrina reading from the Island Echo. 2-decade tradition continues as Gardening Galore event returns. Rookley Village Association has announced the return of its popular Gardening Galore event, set to take place in May. The long-running event that will take place on the 3rd of May at Rookley Village Hall has been a key annual event for garden lovers across island communities for more than 20 years, continuing to attract more and more visitors each year. A wide range of gardening stalls will be in attendance, featuring local plant nurseries, growers and suppliers. The event has grown steadily over the years and is now considered a highlight of the Isle of Wight's horticultural calendar, showcasing local expertise and produce. Visitors will be able to browse and purchase plants and gardening items, with the convenience of returning to their vehicles before continuing their visit. Refreshments will be served inside the hall, including a selection of homemade cakes prepared by the Rookley Women's Institute. Organisers are encouraging residents and visitors alike to attend for what promises to be a relaxed and enjoyable day, with plenty on offer for gardening enthusiasts. Entry to the event is free, with free parking available nearby.
Police and Crime Commissioner to host live Q&A on policing priorities from Isle of Wight Radio. Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones is inviting Isle of Wight residents across Hampshire and also the island to have their say on policing priorities in an upcoming live Q&A session with Chief Constable Alexis Boone. The Commissioner's oversight of policing services is an hour-long online event taking place on Wednesday, the 22nd of April at 6 o'clock. It'll be streamed live across 3 Facebook pages: the Police and Crime Commissioner's page, the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, and Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary. Members of the public can submit questions in advance or ask them live during the event, with topics set to include road safety, antisocial behaviour, police visibility, rural crime and business crime. Donna Jones has said her role is to listen to residents and to ensure local policing reflects community concerns. She said, "My main role as Police and Crime Commissioner is to listen to people living and working across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight and take their concerns to the force. This ensures it delivers effective, local, visible policing that drives down crime and makes our communities safer." COPS is a fantastic way of doing that, providing answers and reassurances on the issues that matter most to people. Anyone can submit a question, and I'd encourage you to do so. A recording of the session will also be made available for those unable to watch it live, and the Office for Police and Crime Commissioner will aim to respond to all of the submitted questions.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Jerry.
And Carolyn.
Family upset after dad with dementia moved against his wishes. A family have spoken of their upset after their elderly father, who has dementia, was moved to a care home on the mainland against their wishes. Graham Martin from Lake and born in Ventnor was taken to Southampton on Wednesday morning, isolating him from his children and his wife of 63 years, Carol. The 82-year-old had been at St Mary's Hospital after he had a fall while at Cameron House in Ryde, where he was having respite care. He was waiting to be discharged, and his family have been desperately trying to find him a place to go on the island. His daughter Tracy Bowers said the home, one of 3 set to close, would not take him back due to his decline, and attempts to find him an alternative home on the island have failed. Tracy said she was told there was nowhere suitable for him here due to his complex needs. On Monday, Graham's family were informed he would be moved to the mainland, leaving them shocked. "Even though we have power of attorney, they can override that," she said. "They say it's because they're working in his best interests. I can't see how isolating someone over on the mainland with all his family here, how is that going to be beneficial to him?" She said her mum and dad have been married for 63 years and have never had time apart. While she understands the need to free up a hospital bed, she said she cannot believe there is nowhere on the island for him to go. "It's shocking that they can do that to someone who has been here that whole time," she said. She feels that care homes prioritise residents who are privately funded, as they pay more than those who are placed by the council. Tracy said her mum would not be able to go to the mainland on her own for health reasons, and the ferry cost and time it takes are also prohibiting factors. Although Graham's family have been told efforts will be made to bring him back in the future, Tracy said he should never have gone in the first place. "I know how upset my mum is. She's in a terrible state." An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said the Isle of Wight Council cannot comment on individual cases.
New High Sheriff launches a Close to Heart campaign. A new Isle of Wight High Sheriff was appointed at Newport Minster on Monday, and he outlined his plans to start a campaign close to his heart. Nigel Hartley, 63, is best known on the island for his work with Mountbatten, but has been a prominent leader in the hospice and end-of-life care sector, both in the UK and across the world. He is drawing on his 4 decades of experience to launch a campaign called My Life, My Death, My Plan. As the new High Sheriff, he plans to use the campaign in association with his beloved Mountbatten to highlight the importance is planning for death well in advance. He believes people should plan for their end of life while they are able, before advancing age and ill health could hinder the planning process. Anyone who joins the campaign will gain access to guidance and information to support and encourage the end-of-life planning process, including an advance care plan. The guidance includes advice on making a will, setting out end-of-life preferences, and engaging in meaningful conversations with loved ones. It can be completed over time and at pace, comfortable to each individual. Nigel said planning ahead will also help support the wider health system, including the NHS and hospices. Find out more at mountbatten.org.uk/High Sheriff Campaign. Mr. Hartley moved to the island in 2015 with his husband Thomas. They live in St. Lawrence and have a large extended family, including children and grandchildren. Mr. Hartley retired as Mountbatten's CEO in October 2025. He is an author of several books and has an international reputation as an educator and teacher in the areas of death, dying and bereavement. He was awarded an MBE in King Charles's Birthday Honours List in 2023 for services to hospice and end-of-life care. In 2025, he was presented with the Chamber of Commerce President's Award for outstanding contribution to the Isle of Wight community. He is also an accomplished pianist and enjoys playing and performing whenever he gets the chance. He said, "I am honoured to serve my Isle of Wight community in the Office of High Sheriff for 2026-27. There are many individuals and organisations who make a huge difference across our very special community, and I look forward to celebrating and shining a light on everything they do. The Office of High Sheriff is a royal appointment and is a non-political, unpaid role. Mr. Hartley takes over the role from Jackie Gazzard."
Man speeds at more than 90 miles an hour, leaving officers in his wake. A Porsche driver who admitted tearing along roads at more than 90 miles an hour has escaped a driving ban after magistrates heard the offence was a wake-up call. Derek William Thomas of Gravel Pit Road, Wootton, appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Tuesday, April the 7th. He pleaded guilty to speeding in Newport on July the 20th last year. The court was told of an officer with Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary's road policing team spotted Thomas's driving a silver Porsche Carrera shortly before 2 p.m. Jason Spellman, prosecuting, said the officer first observed the vehicle along Station Road, Wootton, before it continued onto White Rails Road, heading towards Newport. He then accelerates heavily, said Mr. Spellman, adding that Thomas reached the speed in excess of 90 mile an hour in a 60 mile an hour zone. The officer attempted to keep pace, but was unable to do so, despite clocking up 90 miles an hour himself. The model of car Thomas drove has a top speed of 187 miles an hour. He was only able to catch up once they entered the 30-mile zone on Staplers Road, the prosecutor said. In a statement read to the court, the officer said he had followed Thomas for more than a mile and described the road conditions at the time as damp. When eventually stopped, Thomas told the officer he'd been stupid. The court heard Thomas already had 3 penalty points on his licence for a previous speeding offence. Appearing unrepresented, Thomas addressed the bench directly, admitting his conduct was very poor and irresponsible. There is no excuse for driving at 90 mile an hour in a 60 mile an hour speed limit, he said. Thomas asked magistrates to consider penalty points rather than disqualification due to being the only van driver at the engineering processing business he runs. He described the incident as completely out of character and told the court he was ashamed of his actions. "I realised driving at that speed reduced my ability to react, and it could have had serious consequences for myself and others," he said. "This has been a wake-up call for me." Magistrates handed Thomas 6 penalty points and fined him £320 with £128 surcharge and £85 costs.
It's a new view for care home. A care home has been given a new lease of life after a £2.5 million transformation with a ribbon-cutting ceremony marking the start of a new era for the site. The newly named Lakeview Care Home near Newport officially reopened on Tuesday as a modern, state-of-the-art facility under new ownership, signalling a positive future for residents, staff and the wider community. Located near Newport, the former Blackwater Mill residential home was bought by English Oak Care Homes last year for $2 million, with a further $2.5 million invested in upgrading the facility. Jessica McGovern, the care home's manager, said, "We're all so proud and excited. It's such a positive thing for the community. Something before that was so negative is now so positive." The home was officially opened with a ribbon cutting by the Isle of Wight's new High Sheriff, Nigel Hartley, who described the facilities as incredible. Blackwater Mill was once associated with controversy and eventually closed down, but English Oak Care Homes see a bright future for the property. Stephen Geach, founder and chair of English Oak Care Homes, said, "Blackwater Mill is a beautiful site with enormous potential. We look forward to creating a warm, welcoming environment for residents and staff alike." Building work began in September last year and was carried out by Ventnor-based Plenty Construction. The refurbished home will feature 54 modern rooms with work on the top floor nearing completion. Once fully operational, it is expected to employ between 50 and 55 staff. The public opening allowed the public, community groups and representatives from the Isle of Wight NHS Trust among those invited to tour the facility. Liam Geach, CEO of English Oak Care Homes, said, "The community has been desperate for us to open. The 7 months of hard work has definitely brought life to it. When we came to view the property, we fell in love with it. We're really pleased with how it looks now, and we look forward to welcoming new residents." Carer Kerry Scott said, "I've seen it develop over the past few months into this amazing place. It's really nice."
Obstructive caravan to be removed. A nuisance caravan parked along a main road will be removed months after it first appeared. Having sought legal advice, the caravan on White Rails Road, Newport, is now considered to be a highway obstruction, the Isle of Wight Council has said. Appearing just before Christmas, the caravan led to temporary traffic lights being installed. These have since been removed. The caravan later became badly damaged with windows smashed and litter left lining the road. Previous attempts to encourage the owner to leave failed, with the council also performing welfare checks on the man. The authority later said the caravan had been abandoned, but it appears that there has been an occupant there recently. Firefighters were recently called to a fire outside of the caravan caused by an incinerator. Now, months later after it appeared, the council has said it will remove the caravan as quickly as possible. A council spokesman said last Friday, "The council has taken legal advice and we are treating the caravan as an obstruction of the highway and removing it under Section 149 of the Highways Act as quickly as possible." The council also has a duty of care towards the health of the vulnerable occupant and are encouraging them to take the support offered by the local charities who have experience and expertise in this type of situation.
Father's desperation as disabled son faces move to the mainland. "I find it ludicrous that there's nowhere on the island he can go." Those are the words of a worried 88-year-old father who has told the county press that his disabled son faces an uncertain future. Richard Laws, 59, is yet another islander who could be moved to the mainland against his and his family's will due to the lack of care options available here. Richard, who has been living at Anfield Grange Nursing Home in Ryde for the past 12 years, suffered brain damage after falling down the stairs around 30 years ago. He has also previously suffered a stroke, affecting his ability to walk and leaving his speech impaired. Richard was admitted to St Mary's Hospital in February after getting food stuck in his throat and later contracting pneumonia. He was treated and has been fit to be discharged for about 5 or 6 weeks, but there is nowhere for him to go. Anfield Grange is due to permanently close soon, along with 2 other homes run by the same provider, and in any case, Richard did not want to return there anyway. It has effectively left him in limbo, and his dad, John Laws, at his wits' end. I phoned social services and spoke to the liaison at the hospital, and they all say the same thing. There's nowhere suitable for him to go, which I find absolutely ridiculous, John from Ryde said. He's taking up a hospital bed. John said he spoke to the Isle of Wight Council's social services team and was amazed, astonished and angry to find out that Richard may have to be moved to the mainland. I said, no, I'm not having that. I don't want him over there. For a start, how do you expect us to go and visit him? I said, it's not going to happen, and she said, unfortunately, that's the case. There should be a place for people like Richard on the island. He can't be the only one. Asked to clarify what could be done for Richard, a council spokesperson said the Isle of Wight Council cannot comment on individual cases. Pressed on how many residents affected by the closure of the 3 care homes have ended up on the mainland, the spokesperson added, the Isle of Wight Council is working closely with those affected and is an ongoing situation. However, we can confirm no mainland places have been made to date.
Close-up look at the new stadium. Newport Football Club are on track to move into their new 3,000 seater capacity stadium from next season. The club has revealed as new images chart the build's progress. Photos taken on the construction site near the racecourse roundabout show an up-close look at the Port's new clubhouse, the exterior of which is almost complete. Members of the club have recently been on site and got the chance to step into the building for the first time. It was good to see real progress on the ground built, said Steve Rackett, chairman of Newport Isle of Wight Football Club Supporters Association, owners of Newport FC. Once completed, the clubhouse will have an initial capacity of 150, with a kitchen and a bar. There will also be a refreshment hatch for use on match days, changing rooms for match officials and teams, internal and external toilets including wheelchair accessible, and a utility room for washing and drying. Meanwhile, the ground itself will have capacity for 3,000, allowing the club to host big games as well as large charity events. It will also have 2 drop-in seating areas placed between the clubhouse and the pitch. These stands will have a capacity of 75 each, including wheelchair spaces, and there will be a covered terrace at either end of the pitch behind the goals. Not only will our Newport Isle of Wight FC finally have our own ground again, it will also be a facility to open other clubs and organisations. It is recognised that the island has a shortage of full-sized artificial pitches, so this will be a gain for the wider football community, who will be able to use it for training sessions on a regular basis. We think this is particularly exciting in terms of helping with youth coaching and development opportunities on the island. The ground is expected to be their home from next season, and the construction is running to timetable for a summer handover. It is being built by South Coast Leisure Limited, which is also building a retail park at the site of Newport's former ground, St George's Park. Newport Isle of Wight Football Club is a volunteer-run, community-owned football club, and it costs £10 a year to be a voting member of the Supporters Association.
Bank work on track for completion date. Work to stabilise the Wroxall embankment is expected to be completed on schedule by the end of the month, amid frustration expressed by residents. The Isle of Wight Council scheme, delivered by Island Roads with island-based civil engineering specialist DDGA, was required after tons of sandy clay soil collapsed onto St John's Road during a period of heavy rainfall in November 2022. The 8-week project has seen tons of unstable earth removed from the embankment, with a new retaining wall built in its place, while St John's Road remains closed. Engineers say the collapse left the slope unsupported and at risk of further movement, threatening properties above and the road below. Luke Ward, project manager for Ringway Island Roads, said the complexity of the bank only became fully apparent once excavation began. As the scheme started, we raised concerns enabling works were needed, he explained. DDGA site manager David Verber said stabilising the slope was always the overriding priority. This, and protecting the residents and their properties living above it, were the principal concern for this project, he said. A total of 75 anchors were installed at the top of the slope, with excavation carried out meticulously in 5-metre sections over 5 levels to manage the risk of further collapse. That process alone took a number of weeks, he said. He acknowledged frustration locally, particularly when little appeared to be happening on site. This is what the public really couldn't see. It looked like we were doing nothing, but it was critical, almost invisible work, he added. Once the slope was safe, work began on the permanent retaining wall. Some 138 concrete blocks weighing 140 tonnes combined are now being placed. Engineers estimate the wall will have a design life of 120 years. Luke added the team understood residents' frustrations with the road closure, access and parking, but stressed the works could not have been done any quicker or in tandem with Wroxall's road servicing scheme over the winter. It's a complex project, more complex than anyone walking by would appreciate, he said. Through teamwork among island companies and utility providers, it's being delivered on time as specified. David added, "We understand the frustration, but the enabling works were the critical part. It was an engineered solution and had to be done safely." The project is predicted to be completed on April the 30th.
Calls to reject intrusive works at historic barracks. The Isle of Wight Society has joined calls to refuse an intrusive plan for toilet and shower facilities at a historic building in East Cowes. There is an alternative to destroying the integrity of the guardhouse of Victoria's Barracks on Albany Road, the conservation organisation told planners ahead of a scheduled decision on April the 29th. The Cowes Harbour Committee, CHC, has proposed renovation works including external doors, external and internal alterations, as well as an extension to the building. Acting on behalf of CHC, ERMC previously said the plans seek to allow the Isle of Wight Council to improve a building of local island importance. It will support increased foot traffic in East Cowes and businesses on the island as a whole, as well as help keep up with the increasing demand for maritime and associated support facilities, a submitted statement said. The Isle of Wight Society's objection letter said, "Any developments while repairing and reusing heritage assets should relate to the conservation and enhancement of that building. This application, while reusing a heritage asset, relates negatively to the conservation and enhancement of the guardhouse. It ignores the coherent group value of the guardhouse within the setting of the barracks and parade ground. The proposed changes to the guardhouse would be detrimental to the Victorian grouping of barracks parade ground. Guardhouse wall and railings, its representation stated. Concern was also raised over surrounding fencing, which the society said would separate the building from its original role within the parade ground. The group said alternative plans involving the reopening of a disused doorway into a brick wall-screened guardhouse area in Columbine Road would still allow the structure to be used as a shower block for the marina. This would avoid the need for berth holders to enter the parade ground, so the building could be sensitively restored with non-opening Victorian-style doors and windows on the parade ground side, the group added. In addition, the society said fewer single showers would allow the current guardhouse to be reused without an unsightly extension.
Rapper earns himself main stage spot at festival. Island rapper Fugo Kid has earned his place on the main stage at the Isle of Wight Festival after winning the 2026 White Noise competition. After an evening of live music from 5 nominees, Fugo Kid, the stage name of Jack Portuito, was crowned the winner of the annual Platform 1 event at Strings Bar and Venue in Newport. In a Battle of the Bands event, each nominee performed 4 songs in front of a live audience and panel of judges, including BBC Radio Solent host Steph Neuenhuis. Fugo Kid and his band were up against rock group Willowfly, star of Channel 4, the piano, Jay Eatwell, and singers of Georgia Nicole and Ruby, both of whom were competing in the competition for the 3rd year in a row. Speaking to the county press after his win, Fugo Kid said, "It feels quite surreal. I've gone from the bedroom making my music to this. It's so amazing. That might have been one of my favourite performances of all time. I just want to thank the whole band. I couldn't be happier." Fugo Kid will perform on the main stage at the Isle of Wight Festival on Sunday, June the 21st, joining a lineup including The Cure, The Cooks and Level 42.
Sandwiches offender facing possible prison. A prolific offender who stole sandwiches worth £3 after his benefits were stopped will appear before an Isle of Wight Crown Court judge. Reuben Jones of Church Road, Wootton, appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Friday, April the 10th. The 21-year-old pleaded guilty to shoplifting and drug possession. The court heard Jones stole a sandwich from Tesco Express in Wootton on January the 22nd. Serena Edwards, prosecuting, said a store security officer watched Jones put sandwiches in his pocket while inside the shop before he left without paying. Police were called to the store and were later able to identify Jones from CCTV footage. On February the 6th, officers again encountered Jones, this time walking towards his home in Wootton. He was arrested in connection with the earlier theft. During a search, police found a small amount of cannabis and cannabis resin. Jones told officers the drugs were for his own use. When interviewed, he admitted the offences and said he used cannabis as an alternative to prescribed medication. The court was also told that Jones has a number of previous convictions and that his latest offending put him in breach of a suspended sentence order, SSO. The 2-month prison sentence, suspended for 18 months, was imposed on September the 6th last year for various offences, including shoplifting. Jones is also subject to a probation order which remains in force until September the 13th. He's also due to be sentenced by a judge on Friday, April the 17th, for driving whilst disqualified and driving without insurance. For Jones, Nick Muir said his client's benefits had been stopped on January the 22nd. Jones had been out with his partner and had not planned to steal, but became hungry whilst at Tesco's and had no money. Mr Muir said the sandwiches were worth about £3 and Jones apologised when arrested. Magistrates bailed Jones, referring sentencing to the Isle of Wight Crown Court on May the 15th.
Town regains pharmacy. A coastal town has regained a pharmacy this week after a new provider took over from the troubled Jutes chain. Returning customers have hugged us and cried with us, manager of the new NHS contracted service at East Cowes Medical Centre, Angie Chappell, said last Friday in an interview. The premises on Church Path has not had a pharmacy since previous provider Jutes shut in September last year, with staff members going without pay for months and pressure piled on the neighbouring Regent's store. It is now under the umbrella of the Allied Pharmacies Group. Ms Chappell told the local Democracy Reporter service, "There are loads of people that just want to come back to us. They've missed having the option of 2 pharmacies. Sometimes you've used all the stock. The other pharmacy can help." The staff are on cloud 9. It's amazing. The company we work for now, Allied, are so supportive. If you've got any questions, they're there straight away. The pharmacist said the new branch can do everything any other pharmacy does, citing COVID jabs or the Pharmacy First service. We've tried to make it easy for the patient as well. We do services where we can order for the patients, we can call them, text them, she said. The main focus with this company is patient-centred care. Sometimes we do order medication that's more expensive than what we'll get reimbursed for. Because it's cheaper, one might be out of stock, and they've told us you can order for the patient. It's fine. Other benefits Alliance can offer include free delivery and tray services, they said. Asked about recent pharmacy burglaries, the pharmacist said new shutters would make break-ins harder and added that the branch was not previously broken into. After visiting the East Cowes Medical Centre this morning, Independent Ward Councillor Carl Love said, "I wish them well, and it will take some time to win back the confidence of local people. The proof will be in their ability to provide the services in a way which is accessible to all."
Waste firm steps in as council's £225 million contract cut short. A new firm has stepped in to take responsibility for the Isle of Wight's recycling and waste management services after the previous 25-year deal worth £225 million was cut short by 14 years. Appointed under a new 2-year deal by the Isle of Wight Council, the French-owned environmental services company, Veolia, will now collect household collections to more than 73,000 properties. The firm will also manage 2 household waste and recycling centres and operate key waste infrastructure. According to the council, residents will see no immediate changes to their regular collection days or routines and should continue to put out their bins as usual. The arrangement follows the early termination of the council's 25-year partnership with Thalia, formerly Amy, which ended on March the 31st, more than 14 years ahead of schedule. Veolia has been providing short-term consultancy support since January, while longer-term arrangements were being negotiated. While council leaders have framed the deal as a smooth transition, the change of contractor has come amid significant financial strain at County Hall. A budget report earlier this year named the rising cost of the waste contract, a £6.5 million increase this year, expected to rise to £9 million in 27-28, as one of the key factors behind the authority's serious financial distress. The report placed the council's structural deficit 2026-27 at £20 million. When the original partnership with Amy was signed in 2015, it was valued at around £225 million over 25 years. Speaking about the appointment of Veolia, the Council Service Director for Waste, Environment and Planning, Natasha Dix, said, "Our residents are already some of the most committed recyclers in the country, and this switch marks the next step in supporting the island's passion for protecting our beautiful environment. We're pleased to be working with Veolia, who share our commitment to high standards and a sustainable future for our island." Ben Slater, Veolia's Regional Director for Treatment South, added the company was delighted to be partnering with the council to deliver essential, sustainable and high-quality services with as little disruption as possible.
Pub on sale as owners plan next step. A popular pub is to be put up for sale, but its owners say they have no expectation of closing and plan to continue trading. Owners Daniel and Jasmine Ashley Walker have confirmed they are placing the Bugle Inn in Brading on the open market, with the lease to be marketed through agents Scotcher & Co. In a message to customers on social media, they said they wanted the information to come straight from the horse's mouth amid likely speculation about the High Street's pub's future. The couple, who have run the Bugle for 5 years, said the decision follows a change in their family circumstances, with their children now grown up. They wrote that they are ready to look towards our future and a new chapter, and have absolutely loved our time at the Bugle and all the staff and customers that we have met over the past 5 years. They added they would be very sad to say goodbye when a sale eventually goes through. Alongside running the Bugle, Daniel and Jasmine Ashley Walker expanded into Sandown in 2023 when they bought the Corkheads pub, which they then sold in 2025.
It's a real hoot as dream comes true. A lifelong dream has come true for an island resident thanks to the kindness of a volunteer and a community project. Barry, the first recipient of its Gift of Friendship programme, recently fulfilled his wish to see an owl up close. He said he had longed for that experience forever and ever. Barry, who became increasingly isolated following the death of his wife, was paired with a volunteer through the charity's Good Neighbour scheme, which helped him regain confidence, reconnect socially and begin attending community events. During an UK Isle of Wight chatty brew session, Charity told his volunteer that one of his greatest wishes was to see an owl up close. His fondness for the birds dated back to his career as an aeronautical engineer, where he often saw owls resting high in the hangars. With support from Barry's family, who funded the outing, and help from the Falconry Experience Isle of Wight, Barry was treated to an afternoon at home with 3 owls, Rebel, Penny and Shadow. Barry said, "When you've dreamed of something forever and ever, and it comes true, you just can't believe it." Joe Hodgkinson of Age UK Isle of Wight said, "The story showed the real value of the programme." Mr. Hodgkinson said, "Barry's story is a lovely example of what Gift of Friendship is all about. It is about helping people feel more connected, supported and able to enjoy life again." Mr. Hodgkinson added, Barry had been through a difficult period of isolation, and with the support of his volunteer, he began rebuilding confidence and reconnecting socially. To then see one of his lifelong wishes come true was incredibly special for everyone involved. He also thanked everyone who helped make Barry's experience possible. Mr. Hodgkinson said, "We are hugely grateful to Barry's family for helping make the day possible, and to the Falconry Experience Isle of Wight for creating such a memorable and meaningful afternoon. It was a wonderful reminder of how much kindness, friendship and community support can mean."
Ferry firms address fare increases fears. The Isle of Wight ferry companies have responded to the question of whether there will be fare increases amid oil price volatility and conflict in the Middle East. Wightlink told the local Democracy Reporting Service the situation is constantly evolving and that it is too early to predict whether there will be a knock-on effect on fares. Red Funnel CEO Fran Collins meanwhile announced it has no plans to implement a fuel surcharge at this time. Phil Delaney, Commercial Director at Wightlink, said his company has written to the government to share its concerns over both rising oil prices and new emissions trading scheme charges. The LDRS asked both Wightlink and Red Funnel if passengers will pay more because of the market turbulence which has seen oil prices surge past $100 per barrel. According to Hargreaves Lansdowne, the Brent crude oil price currently stands at $95.42 at the time of writing. Mike Williams, who launched a petition calling for a government-backed scheme to make ferry fares affordable, previously said he would not be at all surprised if there are fare increases soon due to Iran war-related fuel price volatility. Wightlink's Mr. Delaney said global events, including the conflict involving Iran, have led to volatility in oil prices affecting organisations worldwide. As a lifeline transport provider, we work closely with our fuel partners to help minimise the impact on customers. As the situation is constantly evolving, it is too early to predict whether this will have any knock-on effect on fares. We have written to the government to share our concerns about the combined impact of rising oil prices and the introduction of new emissions trading scheme charges. Our CEO, Katie Taylor, has offered to meet Mr. Williams to discuss his feedback. For the time being, he has chosen to liaise directly with Island MPs regarding his concerns. For Red Funnel, Miss Collins said, airline prices are soaring and more people are expected to plan UK staycations in 2026 as a result. To help ensure the Isle of Wight benefits from this increase, we have no plans to implement a fuel surcharge at this time. Island residents can also continue to benefit from a number of existing discounts, many of which will be accessed via the Big Book of Savings. This is the time for the island to shine and show holidaymakers what it has to offer as a beautiful, easy-to-reach destination without the usual airport hassle.
Coastal Village is among Britain's poshest for 2026. A village found in an idyllic spot on the coast has been named among Britain's poshest for 2026. Fishbourne was included alongside 48 others in the annual list from the Telegraph. The publication used exclusive research provided by Savills as part of the basis for its picks. Factors such as high house prices, a lively community, a thriving village hall, great pubs, local shops and sporting facilities were considered. The full list of Britain's poshest villages for 2026 can be found on the Telegraph website. Fishbourne was the only Isle of Wight entry on the list and was highlighted thanks to a number of factors. Access to the Royal Victoria Yacht Club nearby, beautiful beaches and an average house price of £606,386 played into its favour. The newspaper wrote, the car ferry to Portsmouth docks here, but that's a good thing. It's only 45 minutes to the mainland, handy for those who have to commute. The bustle of the port can't detract from the charms of this well-connected seaside village in an idyllic spot on the Isle of Wight's northeast coast. On the banks of the Wootton Creek by the Royal Victoria Yacht Club and Quor Abbey, which is home to a community of Benedictine monks and open to visitors, Fishbourne is a calm coastal berth. There's a good local pub, the Fishbourne Inn, and the elegant Georgian town of Ryde with its independent shops is less than 3 miles away. As well as the yacht club, the car ferry and nearby beaches, Fishbourne also has a pub. The Fishbourne Inn is located close to the car ferry and it describes itself as a tranquil inn by the sea. The pub's website adds, with its wonderful views and idyllic setting, you will be tempted to return time and time again. Whether you are dining from our classic pub menu, enjoying a drink with friends, or staying with us, your visit is sure to be memorable. The pub has a large patio area where you can watch ships go by in the Solent, and there are also 5 ensuite rooms if you want to stay.
Popular festival returning. The Wolverton Folk and Blues Fair is set to return for its 14th year. The festival will take place on May the 9th at Wolverton Manor, Shorewall, from 11:30am to 8pm. Raising funds for teenage and young adult cancer care and Bryston Primary School, the event has become a staple on the island's calendar since its debut in 2011. The festival features a lineup of blues and folk artists, including UK bluesman Errol Linton, the Thumping Tommies, and Delta blues artist Ray Cashman. The beer tent acoustic stage will also return, showcasing island talent. The lineup also includes the Gill Kicker Weevils, Second Time Around, and Milo, Doug Aldred and the Silver Lining, the Bohemians, Feck the King Bees, Bryston Barnacles, the Purple Emperors, Berlingo Flick, the Hollow Creek Band, F9 Uking the Blues, our Annie R and Moonshine Border Morris. Festival goers can enjoy food, a tea tent and a real ale tent, alongside craft stalls and Morris dancing. Tickets can be purchased at Waterstones Bookshop in Newport, the Village Shop in Bryston, Bridlesford Farm Lodge, Shop in Wootton Bridge, and Orchard Brothers in Freshwater Bay.
And now we're moving on to white memories and nostalgia. And we begin with the county press has been bringing the news to islanders since 1884. We've delved into the archives. 125 years ago, in April 1901, Sandown District Council warned motorists to drive carefully on Lake Hill after owners of heavy horse-drawn wagons who placed large stones behind the wheel while resting their horses were leaving the stones in the road. Sandown District Council approved plans for the Electric Light Company to install lighting at Lake. The Royal Governor of the island, Princess Henry of Battenberg, sanctioned a plan to erect a memorial to Queen Victoria in St James's Square, Newport. 100 years ago, in April 1926, Cowes Floating Bridge carried 862,016 foot passengers and 5,048 vehicles during the year ending March the 31st, 1926. A Newport labourer who admitted to obtaining gas by fraud from the Ryde Gas Company was fined £1. He used filed down halfpennies in the gas meter instead of shillings. Rumbling noises heard across the island for 20 minutes were found to have been caused by an earthquake, shock waves, or a volcanic eruption in Hawaii.
75 years ago, in April 1951, described as one of the worst peacetime submarine disasters, 75 sailors lost their lives after the HMS Affray sunk 30 miles southwest of St Catherine's Point. Building work on 20 new houses at Pan Estate, Newport, was being completed, which would bring the total to 64. Restoration of the Congregational Church, Ventnor, began. It was badly damaged by bombing during the Second World War. 50 years ago, in April 1976, church attendance from young people had significantly increased in the Ryde area, according to clergy in the town. Isle of Wight Council claimed compensation following the breakdown of the 280,000 cows floating bridge, resulting in a loss of tolls and the cost of hiring launches. Pupils of Osborne Middle School raised £150 towards the restoration of Shorewall Footbridge. The Coconut Grove, Ventnor, and La Babaloo, Ryde were granted 2 a.m. extensions on Easter Saturday night. For more tales of the past, subscribe to our online archive, where you can read the County Press editions dating back to 1884.
And now we have some public information. Phil Jordan, leader of the Isle of Wight Council, writes, "Stay curious, especially during this election period. We all know there's something a bit special about the way life works on our island. It's unique. It's not just the sea air or the scenery, it's also the people, the sense of community, and the way news travels fast, sometimes a little too fast. Lately, like elsewhere in the country, we've found ourselves in a period where there's a lot being said, shared and debated. It's an election period after all. That's part of any healthy democracy, and it's right that people take an interest in what's happening around them. But it also means we're seeing and hearing more rumours, more half-truths, and occasionally things that simply aren't accurate. I hear it myself, out and about on our island, at community events, at meetings and in social events away from the council. Someone will mention something they've read online, especially social media, or heard second-hand, and we'll have a chat about it. Quite often, once you get into the detail, the picture looks a bit different to the headline and understanding. And that's not a criticism of anyone, far from it. We all rely on the information available to us. But it is a reminder that it's worth taking a moment to question and check things through, especially when something sounds surprising or concerning. A quick conversation, a look at official sources, exploring the issue at hand, or even just asking the question can start to make more accurate sense of the problem. What has always struck me about the island is that people care deeply about where they live. You see it in the volunteers who give up their time, the local businesses that keep our high streets going, and the neighbours who look out for one another. Islanders watching out for the island and other islanders. That spirit is far stronger and far more important than any rumour or misleading social media post. And there is a lot to feel positive about across the island. Communities can continue to come together, support each other and make things happen. It might not always make the headlines, but it's there every day, quietly shaping the place we're proud to call home. This beautiful island, the island has always been at its best when people look out for each other and keep things grounded and elevated in reality. As we move through the coming weeks, my simple message would be to stay curious, ask questions, and don't be afraid to check the facts. And above all, let's keep focusing on what really matters, our communities, our shared spaces, our island, and the future we're building together.
How to block unwanted scam calls. Isle of Wight Trading Standards would like to share some scam tips that can hopefully prevent you from falling victim to a scam, and what to do with scams when you are the recipient of one. Call blocking. If you are a White Fibre, Sky or TalkTalk customer, they all offer a free call blocking service. For White Fibre, dial 1490 and follow the instructions. For TalkTalk, dial 1472 and follow the instructions. For Sky, call them directly or through your online account. You can purchase phones that block scam calls and allow through calls from friends and family that are stored in the memory. Call blocking units can be purchased online from reputable traders. Trading Standards works with TrueCall to keep residents safe. What to do with scams? Scam emails can be forwarded to report@phishing.gov.uk. If you receive a scam call purporting to be your bank, you can call 159 to verify if it really was your bank or a scammer. If you receive a scam text, this can be forwarded to 7726. If you receive a call and are unsure of the caller, you can go to the Who Called Me website and put the number in, and it will tell you if this is a trusted number or a scam. If you want to check out a website before making a purchase, go to Get Safe Online, which has a website checker on its site. Find it at www.getsafeonline.org. Sign up to the Which Free Scam Alert newsletter. It has lots of handy hints and tools to keep you safe and can be found at signup.which.uk. WLP Scam Alert newsletter. Reporting a scam. For advice on call, Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline 0808 223 1133. This is a free phone number. To report a scam, call Report Fraud 0300 123 2040.
And now we have some What's On. Limber Up Walking Festival is nearly here. With less than a month to go, the Isle of Wight is preparing for one of the most anticipated outdoor events of the year. The Isle of Wight Spring Walking Festival returns from May the 9th to the 17th, inviting islanders and visitors to rediscover the island's coastline and countryside through a packed programme of guided walks. This year's lineup blends much-loved favourites with fresh experiences, all led by knowledgeable volunteers and local businesses keen to share their own hidden corners of the island. Whether it's a gentle stroll or a more demanding trek, the Walking Festival continues to showcase the rich mix of history, geography and scenery that makes the island such a rewarding place to explore. Among the standout additions is the Hover and Walk, offering a uniquely Isle of Wight start to the festival. Walkers will board a hovercraft from Ryde to Seaview before setting off on a scenic coastal route back via Apley. The event also carries a charitable focus, encouraging participants to raise funds for Dementia UK. For those drawn to the sweeping views, from the West End to West Wight promises a memorable circular route from Yarmouth, taking in the dramatic ridge of Tennyson Down and panoramic vistas across the Channel and Compton Bay before returning via Totland and Colwell. Music and nostalgia combine in the ever-popular Hendrix in West Wight Walk, which revisits the site of the iconic 1970s Isle of Wight Festival at Afton, alongside a stop at the exhibition at Dimbola Museum. New community-focused routes, including Walk for Ukraine and Newport Hidden Gems, sit alongside themed walks inspired by figures such as Charles Dickens, as well as more niche options like a woman-only half needles marathon challenge. Amy Summers, Head of Marketing and Sustainability at Visit Isle of Wight, said, "Our walk leaders have once again curated an astounding selection of walks encompassing history and geography, from brief strolls to journeys that traverse the entire island. We anticipate welcoming walkers from around the world to our island."
Jaundiced Eye by Bill Moore Gunville. You can tell it's April by the number of council election leaflets that drop onto my doormat. I am not normally a suspicious man, but I look at all of them with a jaundiced eye to see what glorious future awaits our island, if only I cast the vote for them. Let's take the Reform leaflet, which dropped on Saturday. It claims Reform-run councils have saved £325 million during the 25-26 financial year and £45 million off tax bills. If this is correct, why are Reform councils raising their council tax rate by just under 4%? If I accept their maths, this is around 0.4% lower than councils controlled by other political parties. However, it still begs the question. Reform claims to have saved millions on the councils they run. So why do they need to raise the tax on councils they control?
Joanne Ballington from Newport writes in her letter, "Thank you to retiring councillor. With all the focus on the candidates for the Isle of Wight council elections in May, lost within the recent news has been the retirement of Pan and Barton's local councillor, Jeff Brodie, after more than 20 years. Jeff has been my councillor and friend throughout that time, and he has been the strongest and most capable representative possible for our area. From founding and driving forward our community centre and Pan together, to always making sure County Hall does not forget about our area and its residents. Jeff has been constantly visible and has kept us regularly informed with over 60 newsletters. I have had the honour to represent Pan and Barton on Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, thanks to Jeff's encouragement. I wish Jeff a long and happy retirement with his supportive wife Mary. I am certain very many other local residents will feel the same. I would like to say a personal thank you to you, Jeff."
Address issue as we face the polls. This is by Ursula Hollis of Cowes. Thank you for your recent informative article online. Nearly half of election candidates decline to publish where on the island they live. It is permissible in the interests of security for candidates to admit their address on their nomination form, and in inner city areas this makes sense. But surely here, candidates should at least confirm the area of the island where they really live and not pretend they live in the ward where they are standing. Apart from the obvious island-wide issues like roads and ferries, how they can be up to speed with problems in their immediate locality if they live miles away, come down only at weekends, or are simply a paper candidate standing to boost the numbers of their party's candidates, which appears to be the case across the political spectrum here in the forthcoming election. Hopefully, in the interests of the island, voters on May the 7th will decide to opt for truly independent local candidates who are standing out of duty to the island, have disclosed their address, live permanently in or near their ward, and have the time to devote to council duties because they are either self-employed or recently retired.
Mark Franklin from Gurnard writes, "What will be done about housing?" For years, the Isle of Wight has struggled with the hollowing out of communities by second homes. But as we move through 2026, the tide hasn't just turned, it's a riptide. The easy money era of short-term lets has hit a regulatory brick wall. While for sale signs appearing across the island might seem like a win for local buyers, the reality is bittersweet. We are witnessing a market shift that is solving one problem while creating two more. The data is stark. Between early 25 and 2026, average island house prices dipped by 4.4% to £240,000 as landlords exited the market. Simultaneously, however, the rental supply has cratered, driving average rents up nearly 8% to £930 a month. This landlord exodus is fuelled by a perfect storm: the abolition of Section 21 no-fault evictions, the £15,000 plus cost of EPC upgrades for our Victorian housing stock, and the end of regulatory light for Airbnbs. We frequently discuss the plight of tenants who, driven by intense competition, are settling for overpriced and sometimes unsafe housing. Yet we rarely speak of the ripple effect on our island's tradespeople. For generations, the rental market provided a bedrock of steady work for island cleaners, plumbers, electricians and builders. That foundation is now eroding. As properties shift to owner occupancy, we see a maintenance gap developing. Families impacted by the cost of living crisis often delay essential work such as boiler servicing and electrical safety checks that landlords were legally required to perform. This devastates the predictable income of small island firms who depend on the rental sector. With the Isle of Wight Council set to rake in over £5 million from the second home council tax premium, we must demand accountability. As we approach the local elections on May the 7th, I put these 5 questions to our MPs and council candidates on rental stability. What concrete incentives will you offer to encourage the conversion of second homes and holiday lets into long-term affordable housing? On supporting trades, how will you help small businesses bridge the maintenance gap as the rental sector shrinks? On revenue, will you work to ensure that the Isle of Wight Council ring-fences the £5 million plus second home premium specifically for local-only housing projects? On compliance support, will you advocate for practical measures to help good landlords meet EPC and safety standards so they aren't forced to sell? On enforcement, following the lack of any fire safety inspections for short-term rentals in 2024, how will you ensure new safety standards are actually enforced to remove rogue operators? The island housing landscape is at a turning point. We require leadership that ensures these changes benefit our entire community, not just those looking to buy, but those who need to rent and those whose livelihoods depend on keeping our housing stock safe. And that's it for the news today. So it's goodbye from Jerry.
And it's goodbye from Carolyn.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
Hello. The name of the game is Crocosmia. Now they're corms, bigger than seeds, smaller than bulbs, corms. Well, they're like very small, like good grapes, size of a grape, say. I'm only guessing which way up they should go, that's the problem. I'm just putting them on the surface of the soil. And then I'm going to simply cover them over.
Andrew Hesser there, welcoming the spring by planting some perennials, setting himself up for another summer of tending his garden in Falmouth, Cornwall, and helping us launch our occasional series of programmes where we're going to invite visually impaired enthusiasts and experts to share their experience and tips on a range of topics. So today we have assembled a panel of keen gardeners with varying levels of vision and a variety of horticultural settings. So let's get them to introduce themselves and give us a sense of what's going on in their gardens at the beginning of the planting season. Andrew Hesser, first of all, tell us about your garden and what you're up to at the moment.
Well, I've got a reasonable sized patch, a vegetable garden, and I've got a shrub border and my bulb plots and my bean plot. I'm totally blind, but for many years I used to avoid going in the garden or planting anything. It was just too fiddly, too much hassle, too much frustration, really. But then about 5 years ago, I thought, well, I want to get closer to nature, and a good way is let's do something with this little plot of garden I've got. So I started planting, and kind of each month, each year, almost every day, you're overcoming challenges and learning different techniques and getting better each year at gardening when you can't see.
Well, we'll go into some of those techniques. Sonia Booth, you do have some usable vision. Explain your circumstances and where you're at with your garden at the moment.
I have advanced glaucoma and also a couple of other complicated issues with Stevens-Johnson syndrome and Sjögren's syndromes. So I have no peripheral vision, but I do have, good central vision in the right eye and part central vision in the left eye. But that gets very cloudy.
Right. Well, we'll ask you about some of the ways you deal with that. But what are you actually doing at the moment in your garden?
So the garden was made much more user-friendly for me a few years ago. So I have raised beds with predominantly perennials that can just come up once a year because I find deadheading and everything quite difficult. So I've got those coming up and lots of herbs. I have 3 water features in total and a small vegetable bed, which I'll be looking to start some seeds off. I'm a bit late this year because of being busy. So I don't grow anything, in a greenhouse or anything. I don't have the room for that. I've done all my chopping back. This weekend I'll finish that off and do the weeding in the main border and then hopefully get some seeds planted in the vegetable area this weekend.
Right. Let me bring in Janice Newman. Some differences between you and Sonia, degree of sight for one, and you do actually have an allotment and a greenhouse, I think.
Well, yes, hello. I have an allotment, but in my garden at home here, I have a little greenhouse where I nurture my seeds, particularly things like squash and courgettes, where you can feel the seeds. I have really no sight, just light and dark, so I can't really see what I'm doing. But I love to grow things from seed and eventually harvest such wonderful produce, and it gives me such a lot of satisfaction to grow and to be able to harvest and to be able to eat what you've grown. So once I've nurtured things in my greenhouse, then when we're frost-free at the end of May, I take my plants down to the allotment where I have raised beds, which I find really useful because they keep you in a straight line.
Right, we'll go into that a bit more, and we'll certainly be talking about the differences between big seeds and little seeds and the advantages of doing that. I would also like to bring in our expert, Mark Emery, from the charity Thrive. Although you could say that our gardeners here are also experts themselves, of course. But Mark, just explain what Thrive actually does in the area of gardening and how it helps visually impaired people.
So Thrive are a charity. We support people with disability needs. We have our 3 sites around the country. So we run sort of projects where people come in and do gardening, really sort of harness the benefits of, as the gardeners there talked about, sort of being outside, being with other people, that nurturing, looking after plants as well.
So do people just come to you and say, I'm trying to get started, what do I do?
So people, because join our projects. There's sort of different projects we run in Battersea, Reading and Birmingham. So the idea that people come and sort of work within the gardens to sort of support their mental well health or support their physical health as well. We also have an information website called Get Gardening that provides lots of advice and good tips for how you can provide further access within garden spaces.
OK, stay with us, Mark. Andrew, just while we're talking about help that people can get, you also run a charity called Brian's Quest, which aims to help visually impaired people connect with the outdoors. Just briefly explain what that does.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. It's to look at ways in which visually impaired people can take advantage of constantly being told in society that get out into the countryside, enjoy nature, but that's not always at all easy and can actually be quite stressful going through a forest or out in your garden. If you sort of turn around, you mentioned courgettes earlier, somebody, you turn around
Janice,
and Janice, you suddenly stood on your prized courgette or something. So it can be quite frustrating. So my charity looks at ways in which visually impaired people can actually take advantage of all the benefits of being out in amongst wildlife.
Right, we'll come on to the issue of trampling what you've just carefully nurtured. Of course, having 3 visually impaired gardeners and an expert means we can explore different solutions to the same problem. Now, it is a time of seeding and planting, so how do you all go about it? Janice, I want to start with you on this one, because you would think that this would be a bigger problem for someone with almost no sight. Tell us about some of your techniques and your preferences as far as what you grow.
Yes, well, as already mentioned, I like the bigger seeds like squash, butternut squash and courgette.
I've got some courgette seeds here, which, they are bigger than the really tiny origami, I think it's called. You can tell I'm not a gardener, can't you?
Well, I like to grow tomatoes as well, and after I've nurtured all my plants that eventually will go out of the greenhouse onto the allotment, I like to grow tomatoes. Well, tomato seeds, it's just like dealing with dust as far as I'm concerned. So I fill my plant pot with multi-purpose compost, and on my dining room table I hold the packet of seeds over the pot and just hope I'm aiming in the right direction, and usually that's successful. Then once they've germinated, you have to prick out the tomato seedlings into their individual pots, and I find that very difficult. It's like dealing with little bits of cotton, and I lose more plants than I end up with. So I do get help with that, and I get someone else to do the pricking out for me. But then once the plants have grown into manageable size, I can use my own sense of touch and plant them into their individual pots.
But the seeding you tend to do in the greenhouse, do you?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me bring in Sonia. Presumably contrasting would be an important step for you when you're sowing, especially when it comes to the smaller seeds that we've been talking about, like these salad leaves, for example. So how do you go about it?
For me, it's more the lighting conditions are very important, because if I'm outside in bright light, even with dark glasses on, I can't see. So I will tend to do things like that indoors, and it is contrast. So if I've got really light coloured seeds, as you say, like the salad leaves, they're quite light. Either it's a bit like Janice, I sort of tip stuff in and hope it's gone in because I won't always see it, or I put it on a white piece of paper or a different coloured piece of paper so that they show up a little bit more, and then you can make a fold and then you can sort of tip them in that way so that you can actually see what's actually coming out of the packet. Because if it's in my hand and it's a light coloured seed, I can't really see it very well at all.
And is there a perfect light for you and an impossible light? I mean, do you do you plan your gardening, your timings for?
You do really, and because I have fluctuating vision depending on how my eyes are that particular day or that particular hour, I'll start out if, for example, I want to prune something, I will start at the back of the garden because the sun is at the front, and then I'll work my way back. So I try and work mostly in sort of more dull conditions rather than very, very bright conditions. And that's better for me at the moment.
I want to ask Andrew and Janice this, because this is definitely one for people with no sight. This whole issue of navigation, actually, getting round your garden. Andrew, what sort of techniques, how well do you know your garden? You obviously know it well, but are there certain things you do to make sure that you don't go trampling on the thing you've just so carefully put in the ground?
Exactly. I learned from bitter experience of squashing my prized courgette. We just take courgettes. I would urge everybody listening to why not grow a courgette plant? However big or small your plot is, you can grow them in a container. So you could get a container that's like 2 foot, 2'6" wide, fill it with compost, stick in a couple of courgette seeds. Now, I'm also advocating do not plant seeds out into the ground in your garden. Do like Janice does and grow plants either in a greenhouse or on the windowsill. So you're only putting plants out into the garden. For a visually impaired person, that's much, much easier. You get better results anyway as a general gardener, but you're not sort of hunting around in the ground trying to find tiny little seedlings. So always plant seeds in small pots and then pot them up, and then when May, June comes along, put them out. That's exactly the same for courgette. So plant your courgette seeds on your windowsill, little pot, and you'll be amazed. How I don't tread on my courgettes anymore is what I do is I put a slab in the ground, like 18-inch by 18-inch slab. I stand on that slab and then I use it like a compass, and I plant a courgette plant north, south, east and west. So whenever I'm going in the garden, I find that slab, I stand on that slab, and the courgette plants only get to, I don't know, maybe maximum of 2.5, 3 feet long. So they're manageable plants. You can reach from the slab. So once I'm staying on my slab, there's no way that I'm going to stand on any of the courgettes, because I just turn left, right, backwards, forwards, and I've got my 4 courgettes as a little family all around me. And I found that very successful. But I also, to find my way around the garden, and you're always bending down, or where's this plant, that plant. So what I do is I put in a 6-foot bean cane along the garden path at every interval where I put plants. So by my slab, rather than sort of feeling around with my hands, or where's my slab to stand on between my courgette plants, I just put my hand out when I'm standing upright, find my bean cane, and then put my foot step towards the base of the bean cane, which is right by my slab.
Very much using touch there. Janice, can I ask you the same question, really? Navigation, what do you do?
You have to be quite methodical, but already mentioned, I have raised beds on my allotment, which keep me in a straight line, so I can walk down between the beds and keep my foot against the edge of the plank which forms the raised bed. And then I have landmarks like posts and paving stones along the edge so that I can recognise where I am. And then eventually, when your plants get big enough, they are landmarks themselves.
Have you put those in deliberately, or do you just remember where they are?
Yes, and I have to be methodical and try and remember where things are. I think a lot of people would label things, but once they're in the ground on the allotment, I don't label things, I just remember. But I do find that labelling, when I'm sowing seeds into pots in the greenhouse, I use the self-adhesive sheets of paper that can go into your Perkins.
Just for those who don't know, that's a Braille writer, basically.
Yes,
so
that's right.
You put Braille labels on with these adhesive pieces of paper.
Yes. Yeah. I write the name of the plant using the Perkins onto the paper and then stick it onto the side of the plant pot. And actually, they retain their stickiness for several years, so I don't have to do it every year, and just remember where the pots are and be quite methodical about keeping your pots in between the seasons so that you know where to find them the following spring.
And you've got me to where I wanted to go, actually, because it is people's personal tips. I mean, Sonia, what about your other specific tips that you'd like to pass on to people?
I mean, I think Janice and Andrew have covered quite a lot of them. And obviously, they have many more challenges than I do. But again, raised beds, contrast, things in pots, and perhaps for glaucoma sufferers and people who can see, contrast, brightly coloured pots will make a difference. If you've got a very brightly coloured pot on a patio, you may well be able to see it more easily because it contrasts much better. When you're moving around in the garden, for me, because but 1 minute I might be able to see quite well and the next minute I can't really see at all. I might stand up and whack my head on a branch or something like that. So a very handy tip, which I learned from a glaucoma webinar actually, was when you are moving around, if you're bending forwards or you're getting up, always put your hand above your head a couple of inches. So as you are moving, your hand will hit something first if you can't see it. And I have different plants with different textures. So again, you can feel where you are in the garden. A rosemary will feel different to a lemon verbena, and a Santolina will smell different from the rose next to it, or something like that. That all helps you to navigate your way and realise where you are, even if you are struggling to see that day.
There's one tip I must get in from Janice, which is, I think, one of my favourites. This is to do with weeding, Janice. I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yes. Well, it was something that I discovered in my shed, which is a wallpaper scraper. And most people, if you can see, you would be hoeing between the plants with a long-handled hoe. Of course, if you can't see, that's not easy to do. You wouldn't know where your hoe is going if it's near your plants rather than the weeds.
You could be hacking at anything, couldn't you?
I use the wallpaper scraper because it's on a short handle. I'm right-handed, so I keep my left hand on the ground, find the weeds, and then use the wallpaper scraper as you would a hoe to take the tops of the weeds off.
So you use one hand basically to locate them, and you can be right close to them. That's where you use the wallpaper scraper.
Yes, that's right.
That's a good one. Listeners may now feel better equipped to go and pick up a trowel or do something. But in case they aren't, Mark Emery, you've been listening to that, and you know you're amongst experts anyway.
Very much so.
What resources, though, are available to help people get started? I'm thinking of people listening to this thinking, oh, well, these people are all very clever and they've been doing it for years. How do I get started?
I think lots of really great tips from the gardeners there. We've got the Get Gardening website I'd recommend having a look at, which sort of has a look at different tools that might be of use. For example, when planting out, sometimes it's hard to get that depth and circumference of the hole you want to plant into. So we might recommend using a bulb planter instead. And then things like if you're doing seed sowing work with small seeds, having chopsticks that you wet one end of and you can transplant the seeds into modular trays, having brightly coloured tape. So lots of ways of sort of adapting tasks to make sure that you can get the most out of them. And again, lots of that advice already given already, which is fantastic to hear.
Look, you've all been absolutely magnificent. Thank you very much indeed. We'd love to get more in, but this is something that we're going to stick with. Listeners, if you'd like to share any of your own gardening tips or your disasters, if you like, we'd like to hear about them. We'd also like to know what you'd like us to do a dedicated episode on, like this one. We've got our own ideas, but we'd rather have yours. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk or leave us a voice message on 0161 836 1338. That's it for today from our panel. Andrew, Sonia, Janice and Mark, thank you very much indeed. From me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings, happy planting.
Scaffolding and Skips News, week commencing 20th of April 2026.
Newport area, 8 Albert Street, Lichfield House, Union Street. Halifax, 114 to 116 High Street and St James's Street. In the Newport area skips, 5 Bank Cottages, Warlands Lane, Shalfleet.
In the Ryde area, 141 High Street, 10 and 11 High Street, 77 George Street and Morrison's Daily, Union Street.
Cowes and East Cowes area, 106 High Street. Cowes area skips, 50 Fellows Road.
Ventnor area, Ventnor Youth Centre, Victoria Street.
Sandown area, 52 Fitzroy Street, Alveston Farmhouse, Main Road, Alveston, Napoleon Landing, Esplanade. Sandown area skips, 29 Alfred Road, Lake.